Commerce Committee. We're going to go ahead and get started with our agenda for today. First up is an informational briefing on SB 382, applying licensure provisions for real estate brokers and salespersons to trusts and authorizing the Kansas Real Estate Commission to issue cease and desist orders. So first we'll have Charles, if you would give us an overview.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Senate Bill 382 makes three primary changes to the Real Estate Brokers and Salespersons License Act. First, this bill would prohibit individuals or persons acting as employees or owners, officers, or members of associations or business entities, and also trusts from dealing in assignable contracts for the purchase or sale or options on real estate. Second, the bill makes the provisions of the Act applicable to trusts in the same manner as it currently applies to business entities and associations. Third, the bill authorizes the Real Estate Commission to issue cease and desist orders for violations of the Act. This bill is very similar to Senate Bill 219 from last year's session. The Senate Commerce Committee held a hearing on that bill on March 11th of last year. The primary difference, there are a couple of them, is that Senate Bill 219 prohibited engaging in a pattern of dealing in assignable contracts. So the language was a little bit different. And secondly, 219 provided for a civil penalty in addition to the authority to issue cease and desist orders that is granted in the bill before you. So I think that's probably sufficient. I've made some notations with respect to each section in my bill brief, but I think that'll So that's what the bill does, and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions for the reviser? Senator Dahl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So let's say if a guy has a brother's good friend that's an attorney, and he buys his own house, and he just has an attorney draw up the contract and such. Does this prevent that from happening?
No. I mean, the prohibition is the main intent of this bill, as I understand it, and the conferee can discuss that, is to sort of deal with this issue of assignable contracts, which apparently are contracts on or option on a contract to sell, and that kind of arrangement where an attorney just draws up a contract that would not fit under that.
Any other questions for the reviser? Seeing none, thank you very much, Charles. Next, we have proponent testimony, Eric Wisner, Executive Director of the Kansas Real Estate Commission. Welcome, Eric. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Yes, Madam Chair, you did. I don't correct anybody on my pronunciation of my name, though, so. Good morning, Chairperson Erickson and members of the committee. On behalf of the Kansas Real Estate Commission, I thank you for the opportunity to present proponent testimony on Senate Bill 382. You have my written remarks. I won't go through those, and I'm just going to hit on the high points here. So what this bill attempts to do is to clarify that a Kansas real estate license is required for an individual who attempts to assign an equitable interest in a real estate purchase contract for compensation to another person for real estate they don't own. So I know one of the questions you probably have is what is assigning an equitable interest? So this practice is also known in the industry as wholesaling. But what happens is it's when an individual enters into a contract to purchase real estate, and then immediately attempts to option that interest to another buyer for compensation prior to closing and taking ownership. So they don't ever take title or ownership of the property. They're just trying to assign interest to somebody else. In most cases, the individual will advertise the property as if they own it. So, in their advertisements on Facebook or whatever, they'll say, I own this property here, I'd like to sell it to an investor, but they don't actually ever take title or possession of the property. And often, frankly, they have no intention to take title to the property. They're just, like I said, looking for an investor to transfer it to. So if they don't find an investor in which to transfer the property to, oftentimes what they'll do is they'll back out of the contract prior to closing. And they can do that because they structure the contract so usually they don't owe any earnest money to the seller in that situation. So last year when we discussed this bill, one of the questions was, give some examples of how this harms the consumer. So I did want to just throw out a theoretical example to kind of show what we see when we get complaints. So in this example, we'll have a wholesaler who enters into a purchase contract with a seller, let's say for $50,000. The agreement that they'll have says the transaction will close in 30 days, and as I mentioned before, there's no earnest money deposit included as part of the agreement. The contract will also say that the agreement is contingent on the title being clean, and then in some cases, the wholesaler will say, and we need to put a lockbox outside the house because we're going to have people potentially come look at it because they want to sell it to an investor. In the meantime, the wholesaler will start marketing the property on Facebook and email listservs that they have to investors, saying they have this property that they want to, sell to whomever. And social media, internet's made this much more pervasive. So the wholesaler then, let's say they found an investor who agrees to take ownership of the property for $50,000. They'll enter an agreement with that investor, and as part of the agreement, they'll also put in there that they have a $10,000 assignment fee. So basically, the investor will be paying for the property, and to the wholesaler, they're making $10,000. So, okay, we've got that scenario. None of this is ever disclosed to the seller. So the seller has, no idea that there's this assignment fee being charged to another party. So prior to the 30 days, prior to the closing, the wholesaler is informed there's an issue with the title. The wholesaler backs out of the purchase agreement with the seller and doesn't provide them any other details. So that's just an example of what we've seen in some of these complaints and why we feel that this is an activity that should be covered under Kansas license law. Some states have banned this practice. We're not proposing to do that. What we're proposing is that someone who deals in these type of transactions needs to obtain a Kansas real estate license. I did also want to clarify, because this came up last year, and I want to reiterate this, nothing in this bill changes the exemption in Kansas law that says an individual who is selling property they own has to obtain a license. So if you own the property, you've taken title, you can sell that property without a license. Nothing in this bill changes that. The reason why this is a consumer protection issue from the Real Estate Commission's perspective. A part of the requirements when you hold a Kansas real estate license is that you perform certain duties and responsibilities through Kansas license law, along with some mandatory disclosures. So in the previous example, the wholesaler, if they were required to have a Kansas license, would have to disclose the compensation they received in the transaction, and then they would have to disclose any known material defects or deficiencies in the title to the seller. We believe that clarifying this activity under Kansas real estate license law also provides the commission with the ability to conduct thorough consumer complaints, and it provides an avenue for the public to resolve disputes and claims that otherwise could be addressed only through costly litigation, and hopeful that a district attorney would take their case. Other states have implemented laws very similar to Senate Bill 382. Arkansas passed legislation in 2017. Illinois passed a law in 2019. Oklahoma in 2021 passed the Predatory Real Estate Wholesaler Act. And Nebraska is currently reviewing a bill that that has very similar provisions during this session. The commission is also requesting reasonable powers to stop activities requiring a Kansas real estate license performed by unlicensed individuals by allowing us to issue cease and desist orders. Many other Kansas agencies, boards, and commissions have similar authority. Currently, the only authority that we have if we receive a complaint regarding this activity is to literally send the individual who's doing unlicensed activity a letter basically saying they may be in violation of Kansas license law, and if we receive another complaint, we'll forward it to the local district attorney. So we've worked really hard over the last few years trying to get this bill in a form that we feel is not burdensome to industry, but also protects consumers. We've worked with the Kansas Association of Realtors, and they're in full support of this legislation. So with that, I'll stop and see if there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Eric. Questions? Senator Dietrich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So how common is this practice in Kansas? Do you know?
I believe we received, I don't know how common it is. I can tell you how many complaints we've received. I think we had somewhere between 10 and 15 complaints last year regarding this activity. I do know that we're getting more and more complaints regarding this activity. I will tell you, they do come from licensees, but also what we're seeing an increase of is the actual consumers complaining to us. And that's kind of why this issue is garnered more attention from the Real Estate Commission.
So if I could just follow up a little bit, just so I understand this. So when you were giving the scenario of what this might look like to the consumer and what the harm might be to the consumer, you said that $10,000 assignment fee, let's just say it's $10,000, and then there was a problem with the title and everything, the client backs out. Is that $10,000 assignment fee then forfeited? Is that the issue?
It would depend on how the contract is structured between the wholesaler and the investor. I would assume that, yeah, that $10,000, once the wholesaler backs out of the deal, they don't owe the assignment fee to the investor. But the fact is that the seller never has any clue that there is that agreement between the wholesaler and the investor.
I was just trying to understand, if I might, Madam Chair, the harm piece. If it's not the loss of money, I know what you're trying to do, and I'm not, disagreeing with that. I'm just trying to understand the harm. How would they? Do they call you because, if it's not that they lost money, why would they call you?
So usually they call us because they thought they were selling this property and something fell through, and they, after the fact found out that there was an issue with the title or something like that. And so now they have that information and the fact that they may have gone and used that money that they thought that they were getting on the sale and purchased another home or used it for some other purpose. That's where we get the complaints from the consumer on.
I just wanted to understand.
And the other thing I should mention, I didn't go into too much detail, is I mentioned about we've seen scenarios where they'll put the lockbox on the house. We've also had instances where they've, when they've brought people into the home that were not, maybe reputable. And if they had a real estate license, there are certain duties and responsibilities for reasonable skill and care that doesn't exist because they're not licensed.
Senator Peck, then Senator Ware.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You mentioned in your testimony that a person who owns or has taken title of property would not have to get a real estate license, and that's also written in your testimony. My question would be, what about a situation where I have power of attorney for my mother, and or maybe I have another relative or friend who I don't have POA for, but they had to move, they weren't able to get their house sold. They said, hey, Peck, I'll give you $500 to sell my house. and I'm doing it just as a favor to them. I'm not planning on being a real estate agent. I don't even want to do it, but as a favor to them, I'm doing it. So would I be prohibited, would a person be prohibited from acting in a sense as an agent when they're really not an agent, they have no desire to be an agent, they're just doing this because they're power of attorney, or they've got someone that had to leave the area for a quick reason, military, job assignment, whatever, and they've asked someone to sell?
So, Senator, I think there's maybe a couple different answers here, so let me try to break it down a little bit. With respect to, and I'm going to look back, I have my compliance supervisor, Wendy Alkire here, she's the technical expert. With respect to power of attorney, in that scenario, you know, that's not something that you would have to have a license to do if you're acting as power of attorney to sell that property for somebody else. If you're a family member and you're, advertising or selling that property and you're receiving compensation for it and you don't own it, that would be an activity requiring a Kansas license. I know one of the questions I've had is, well, what if, in some cases I'm entering into a purchase contract, but for whatever reason I can't fulfill that agreement, medical issue comes up and I want to, my brother's interested, so I want to give it over to him. I'm just having him take it over. That's not what we're talking about here, because in that case, as long as there wasn't a fee being assessed, that's not something that's covered under the changes proposed in this bill, and that's, again, exempt from the license law, because compensation is kind of the key thing that triggers what is, you're basically no longer exempted if you're doing it for compensation and you don't own the property.
Yes, follow up, Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, a follow-up. I do this for a friend or relative. You don't know if he's given me any money or not. How would you catch a person doing that, and what would be the penalty for a person who had unintentionally, unaware, broken the law?
So nothing in this bill really does anything to change that scenario. This is under current Kansas law. We don't go out looking for this matter. Usually the only time we would find out about this is if we received a complaint from somebody. But if we received a complaint currently for an individual who is transacting real estate without a license, we would basically send them a letter saying this activity requires a license, and if we see it happen again, we may forward it to the district attorney. I can tell you from experience, we do have some complaints where it's just a family member doing it. They literally don't know that that's against the law, and we send them a letter, and honestly, we never see it again. The people doing this wholesaling activity, we see the same people over and over and over again. They're not just in it for a one-time deal. They make a business out of it.
Senator Ware.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it sounds like this is a growing problem. It's a predatory activity. It seems like we should just ban it. What would you think about, where would you guys stand on a complete ban of this kind of business?
So the commission has reviewed the various aspects of the consumer protection issues related to these type of transactions. And while it is concerning, we do feel that if they're required to get a license as opposed to a straight ban, I think we don't want to inhibit any ability for people to make a living, assuming it's not detrimental to the consumer. And I think the piece that's detrimental to the consumer is when, this activity is fine if you're required to, like a material defect on the title, disclose that as part of the contract, similar to what a real estate agent would have to do, the compensation received, minimal duties and care and responsibilities that all real estate licensees have to comply with, and the ability for us to do an investigation and to stop that activity when they're not obtaining a Kansas real estate license. So it's a compromise, I guess, is in our opinion.
So you feel like that still covers the consumer well enough?
It does, and in talking with my counterparts in other states who have already implemented this law, they feel that this is the best solution to deal with the problem, that they now have the tools in the toolbox to, there's wholesalers that really do good, and, there are going to be people who do this practice now that they already disclose to the seller, what they're doing, the compensation, things like that. So their business model is not even going to change. It's just some of the bad actors who don't do this that this bill would really impact.
One more quick, and you feel like there's enough teeth here that it really would curtail it?
Well, that's a good question, Senator. I mean, really what we're asking as far as enforcement tools is the ability to issue cease and desist orders. Last year, we also included fines. The reality is we just want people who do not obtain a license to stop doing it. So that's the intent of keeping the cease and desist order in. But the reality is it's fining somebody who is unlicensed is, I don't want to say it's pointless, but it's pointless. We just don't really have any ability to collect that fine. And honestly, we're not in the business to make money fining people. We just want people to stop doing unlicensed activity that potentially harms the consumer.
Any other questions for Eric? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Committee, we do have another proponent, Mark Toom, Vice President of Government Affairs, Kansas Association of Realtors. Welcome, Mark.
Chair. I am Mark Toom. I'm with the Kansas Association of Realtors. This is one of our top 5 priorities this year. And I think what I'll focus on is really what they called it in Oklahoma that passed their legislature 91-1 and 46-0. So it's a very non-controversial issue. They call it the Predatory Real Estate Wholesaler Act. And that's what this is. This is a predatory activity. There's been recent articles in the Kansas City Star that talked about how the people who are engaged in this type of business go to disadvantaged communities. They approach sellers who are maybe not as sophisticated, maybe not even knowing what their property is worth. And this person comes in, does this kind of a contract, and they're under no obligation to tell them and provide them the advice of what their property is worth. So there's definitely a potential for predatory business practices here. So this is something that we definitely support and urge your support as well, and be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark? Excellent. Thank you so much. We have no other proponents. Committee, there are no neutrals and no opponents. Was there anyone that we missed that wished to speak to this bill? Seeing none, we will close the hearing on SB 382. Next on our agenda is, I'm very excited about an informational hearing on the Small Business Development Center. I learned of this a couple of weeks ago and wanted to learn more and thought it would be beneficial for the committee. So we are going to have Bill Carey, I believe. Are you first up, Bill? Excellent. Welcome to the committee.
Hi. Well, thank you. I'm Bill Carey. I'm a Small Business Development Center, Kansas Small Business Development Center Science and Grant Specialist. I'm a small business owner. I'm a contractor with them part-time, but I still run my own business. Done a lot of work in the SBIR program and in running a tech business, so that's how I got pulled into the program. This morning, I just really want to thank you for inviting us to come this morning and to present information. There's a cover letter that was given to all of you that gives a lot of background. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on background or anything. Our focus today is really just presenting how we help companies in Kansas commercialize their innovative technologies, and either in Kansas or connecting with other companies outside of Kansas. A little bit about how we do that, and then some success stories. I asked to bring Susie Pryor with us. She's Associate SBDC State Director. She could give just a little bit of context to this whole thing. And then Alan Badgley, he's the Director of the Technical Innovation Center that I work with directly. And then I also brought Tim Carty. He's the owner of Emp Shield, and he's one of our clients, and I just let him share his experience in working with us. So it's informational. Feel free to interrupt or ask us questions or something if you want to. So without further ado, Susie.
Welcome to the committee, Susie.
Thank you. It's a delight to be here. We appreciate it greatly that you've made this opportunity available to us. Now, can I do the technology? Oh, it's yours. Gotcha. Oh, wait, I think I forgot the third one. Okay. It's probably not a great tech demonstration, but maybe a great argument for why we need these guys. Thank you. My remarks are going to be very brief because really our focus is on what the tech group is doing with the Kansas SBDC. Much of what I wanted to say today is in my letter, so you'll have my notes. The Kansas SBDC has been around since 1983. This state has funded us, as has the federal government, and we're incredibly appreciative. You can see some of the details in terms of the amount of economic impact we've had. But I came on board a couple of years ago, and one of my focuses is what does the next generation of small business look like in Kansas? And we think it looks like these guys, and we think it looks like technology. So we're here just to encourage you to continue support for this program. I will just say shortly that in 1994, I walked into an SBDC in Lawrence, and I said, I want to open a British gift shop. And that British gift shop in Lawrence has been here 27 years, just had its best year ever. And I think it's because of folks like these guys who really hit the ground and work with Kansas clients. So I'm going to turn this back over to Alan Badgley, who is the director of the Tech Innovation Center at the KSBDC.
Welcome to committee, Alan.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to give you a little bit of a context with those that are working with me. You can see the information as far as my bio. I became an independent consultant and was recruited by the SBDC. I was worked with them for several years, turning away a full-time job because I felt like my small business at the time was worth more of my time. Eventually came on full-time and worked with them, and so from that point, we went from business advising to associate regional director, working more, concentrating in finance, to the tech center or the tech initiative. And I met Bill Carey, who was an SBIR expert, had won multiple SBIR awards, and I started asking him questions, even though he was our client. And at one point I said, would you please volunteer to help us? And he did with several of our webinars, seminars, and then we birthed the tech program as I think as Greg puts it, the great experiment. So we started with that. We then, as we moved on, last year, we brought in Rick Slater, who is he's our subject matter expert, was the small business specialist with NASA at Johnson Space Center. He was actually here when Governor Kelly had the NASA How to Do Business with NASA that we helped support back in 2019. He was one of the speakers, and he was so impressed with encountering innovation that year that he contacted us and said, hey, I want to get you guys to work with us. We worked with him to the end of December, and he retired. And I said, could you work with us then? And so that's how we've got him on. What you don't see on that slide, if you put on your sheet, you can put full-time beside my name. You can put 1/8 time besides Rick, and then about 3/4 time beside Bill. And that'll give you an idea of who's working and what level. As I said, we started the great initiative on the experiment with the Tech Center in 2017. I met Brett Sheringhausen, who was the premier tech scout for the DoD, in Austin in the end of 2016 and explained to him what we were trying to do. And he said, you need to do the program, tech transfer. He invited me up. I got to go to New York City and sit through that program for a full week with the tech scouts. Because of that, I think I earned their business to be willing to come to see us. They came in October 2017, and that's where, from their work, we were able to provide expertise and initiative for calling on clients to come on board to the conference. That started in 2017. From that year was the year that I recruited Bill for the SBIR. And then because of that, I said, your science background gives us the ability to look at these clients to see that they really know what they're talking about. So Bill came on with us that year in about a quarter time initiative. From that, we went on for 2 more years, so through 2019. This was all within a region, the regional office at Wichita State University. After 2019 and 2020 and 2021, we moved to the Lead Center, and the Lead Center basically helped fund us through the CARES Act, which is a COVID-related funding program. That funding ends this year. So we basically have been a program that was started as an experiment from the regional office and then moved forward into the state office. And as of this year, the end of this year, there basically is no funding set aside for our tech program. This is just a slide of the variety of services that we provide. I don't want to go into much detail with these, basically, other than to explain that much of this that you see on here, one-to-one business model development, and some of the assistance is what our business advisors do. So what we do is we collaborate with our business advisors across the state, and then we collaborate with whoever our customer is, if you will, like the Department of Defense or our primes. We learn what they want, and then we are able to provide that information through the DoD matchmaking, pitch development, direction of their different documents to where they are able to work with our customers in the pitch much better. At this point, I'd like to ask Bill to come back up. He's going to talk. I'm going to set aside. I want him to be able to talk a little bit about what he does with our program, and then we're going to use the next 2 slides as our background for some of what he's doing.
This, okay, you're going to run that. So let's get down to the nuts and bolts of how do we actually do this. We can talk about it and we can show cool things in PowerPoint, but what are we actually doing? As we said, as Alan was commenting, when we first met the tech scouts and started talking with them, and we said, we'd like to do an event in Kansas. We'd like to do a Kansas-focused event. And they said, well, we could do that once, but it's really awkward for us to have a narrow focus like that and continue to come. But why don't you do a regional event? We always have trouble finding technologies in the Midwest. And if you can do a regional event, then it's an easy sell to our bosses. So we said, well, we can do that. And so we opened it up to our first conference in 2017 to a more regional event. And we actually allow access to any companies in the U.S. that want to come. Sometimes the tech scouts actually refer them from various places, and you can actually see on the map, we've had from all over the place. The red dots are those with just one, and then the blue is with a few more, and then the yellow is with a lot. We try to focus on the Midwest for several reasons. But for our event, what we do is we bring in people, all the companies that want to apply, and then we do, as much as we can, we do broadcast training events so that it doesn't really cost us much. We're prepping once and training, whether you're working with 5 or 20 or 100, it doesn't really matter so much. But then we go through a preparation process, and that's really the key difference here. We spend about 6 weeks to 2 months before they actually present to the DoD Tech Scouts. We actually work with them. with each of the companies, and we help them to get some documents in order that the tech scouts need in order to pass their information on, so that when the tech scouts hear them, those that they want to hear from, they can just say, okay, I want their documents, and they have it immediately. Then we also work very closely with them to provide the pitch practices. And out of everything we do, I think that's the most unique, because we actually get a group of us together. Sometimes it's just me, sometimes it's several. And we actually do a dry run with them, sometimes several. I've done as many as 4 pitch practices with one company that really wanted to get it right. And I thought they were worth the investment. And so we help them hone down what they really need to say, so that 20-minute slot that they have with the tech scouts is meaningful, and it's not, they don't walk out going, wow, I wish I would have done this or that. I didn't know what to expect. So that's a big deal. And then what we've started doing more this last year as we've been expanding, we've been focusing on matchmaking, where we coordinate small business, and then also large businesses meeting with small businesses. And one of the things we do that's really unique, and Rick actually brought this in, he said, if you have a matchmaking event and it's a free-for-all, it doesn't work very well. And so what would really be better is if we let the primes, the bigger companies, choose specifically who they think they should meet. And that was really taken well this last year. Some of the big prime contractors that came, and they got a chance to look through a public statement, kind of a one-paragraph elevator pitch of the companies that was public, and everybody knew it was public. They could look through that, pick the innovators out, and then run with it. So that actually facilitated some really good matchmaking. And then after the conference, and this is important to say too, after the conference, we really focus as much as we can on Kansas companies. I mean, who's funding us? You're helping fund us, and some of our resources are federal, but so we provide we especially focus our support to Kansas companies, and the ones that are from out of state, we try and pair them up with their own SBDCs, their PTACs, others. We try and find a champion to work with them, and if we can't find one, we'll give them some limited help. But we try not to carry them across the line. So that's what we've been doing there. And then throughout the year, we do tech advising. I help with solicitations. I go through SBIR solicitations, and then I target individual companies and say, hey, this looks like you. A lot of small companies are intimidated by reading things like that, the solicitations. It can be hundreds of pages long sometimes. But if you send them something specific and say, read this and see if you're interested, that goes a lot better. And then I help with proposal planning. I help proof proposals. I don't actually write proposals for them, but I can help them edit and think through their process. That's the kind of support that we try and give them on throughout the year. So you see that when you're looking at the national map, one of the things you see is that we are working very closely with Texas and Oklahoma, and to a degree also with Colorado. So when you look at that map, you see there's a lot of yellow right in the Midwest. And the tech scouts love that because it really draws them in. And they started inviting other tech scouts that they know, so it's grown. But one of the things I'd like to just quickly add, and then I'll sit down, is that there's a lot of different ways to win in coming to this conference. Number one, and it would be really nice if everybody connected with a tech scout. Be realistic, that doesn't happen. The tech scouts only have enough time to carry a few, and they find some big winners, and we have one of them here today, Tim Carty, that has gotten a lot of help. But connecting with other companies is really important. We had one company that told me the biggest thing I got out of your conference was I found a small business in Minnesota that could build my prototype for me. I've been trying for a year to find it, and I found them at your conference. It's like, well, that's a takeaway that we weren't expecting. Another person told me The biggest takeaway I got from the conference wasn't the tech scouts or the other companies, it was the preparation. You helped me think through my company, what my company should be focused on, how to communicate what I do, who my target audience, who my target customers are. He said that was the big thing that I took away. So there's a lot of different takeaways from this, the conference we do and then the ongoing support we do.
And I do want to make sure that we allow time for some questions. So if we could wrap up in the next 5 minutes or so, I want to make sure that we hear this story and then we'll have some time for questions.
Exactly. So basically what Bill is talking about are the clients that are the small business that are winning. From the one thing I would say is we continue to advance or to move forward based on the responses. That's why our matchmaking now is a part of our program. This last year, we had about 15 matches or 20 that were with NASA, Goddard Space Center, and with Boeing Space. Boeing Space was so excited that afterwards they said, we'd like to do an exclusive just with you. But we also had our clients meet with each other. We had about 20, but another 50 of those were clients or businesses meeting with each other in the matchmaking. So that's where that has changed. We have several examples. You see the slide on Enduralock. Enduralock is a winner in the waiting. What you don't know is that Tim Fowler with US Stratcom says their device, their innovation, the fastener, will be on the B-1, B-2, B-52, and he said eventually it will be on every airplane in the United States. And then he said it's also now, because he's also the tech scout for NASA and for Spacecom, he says now they're looking at it on Spacecom, and you could see that information with that quote. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Tim Carty. He's a gentleman, he's a great businessman, and a wonderful innovator.
Welcome to the committee, Tim.
Good morning. I'm Tim Carty with Emp Shield. I'm the founder of Emp Shield. A little bit about our company. In 2018, we started building EMP shields, and what it is, in the event of an EMP, it mitigates and your equipment still lives. So you don't lose your equipment, don't lose your cars, don't lose your computers, don't lose the infrastructure for the grid. We went to innovations with Alan in 2018. That year, we did about $170,000 in business. In 2019, we opened up a manufacturing facility, 7,500 feet in Burlington, Kansas, and we did 1.7 million. Then going into 2020 with COVID, we ended up doing 6.4 million. And last year, we did a little over 8 million. And we've already passed $1.2 million for this year. In saying all that, they have helped us tremendously. We have gone from 2 employees to 68 full-time employees. We have 2 facilities now that gives us a 22,000 square feet. We take care of our employees. We provide health insurance, vision, dental, prescription. We pay 90% of it. We got a great team, and when I'm talking about team, that also includes the FBC. We are in the process of acquiring another 35,000 square feet for manufacturing. We've already bought and placed the purchase orders for $1.2 million for an additional line, and the U.S. government has asked us if we will be interested in setting up a test facility to be able to test. During the next 24 to 30 months, the new facility will be approximately $30 million in an investment from us. We're very fortunate in that we're very blessed, we're debt-free, we have funds in the bank, and we've got a great group. The question, the reason I'm here, what has the SBDC done to help and promote EMP Shield? When we met with Encountering Innovations in October of 2018, we met Brett Schoenhausen from U.S. Central Command. And when you have the people come in and they present, what you're wanting at the end of it is the tech scouts to say, we like this technology and we want to recommend you to 2, 3, or 4 agencies. And if they give you the solicitation that they have given you to the agencies, those people will take your call. They are expecting you to call. We were solicited to over 200 agencies and 3-letter agencies that doesn't even seem to exist that we were dealing with. As we have gone through and gone back to encountering innovations, they have helped us. We coach before we go in, and they help prepare. They have a lot of wisdom, especially a lot of wisdom for new companies coming up. And that helps them get through. They did not just help us in 2018. They helped us in 2019, 2020, and 2021, and we were not at Innovations in 2021. They help their clients, their customers, not only help them get to where they are, but help them grow all the way through. So when looking at potential funding them for in the future, they produce jobs. They help companies sell their products from Kansas, and they promote. They help a lot of other areas too, but I'm going to tell you, when it comes to support, you won't find any better than them. If we would have had $20 million worth of advertising, we would not have got to the people that we did in the government. And now, because of that, I sit on 7 different federal commissions on EMP and critical infrastructure. We would not have got that credibility if we wouldn't have had them to set things up front. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your.
I know we're short on time, so I'm just pointing out that this slide is about our new connectivity through our advanced manufacturing. Rick Slater has started contacting the 600 companies that Department of Commerce have given us, and through his first few phone calls, working with them, these are a couple of companies that he's looked at issues and reconnected them, one with the Department of Commerce, one with USDA, and we haven't even been to a conference yet, but that's just the typical stuff that happens with our business advisors and Rick coming on as a subject matter expert. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Susie Pryor for our final information and take on any questions and answers.
Bill wanted me to add that Texas company is interested in Kansas. That's why we're interested in them as well. Do you? I am going to let you guys ask questions. You can see that this has been an incredibly successful program. I looked at the SBIR grants to Kansas companies last year that were reported by December, and 36% of those companies had worked with these gentlemen here. A bunch of others had as well. I would say it was probably closer to 80%, but they're just not on our books as clients. So we've done some incredible work. These gentlemen have done some amazing work in terms of developing jobs, resources, and growing sales. We need your support. We are becoming increasingly dependent on the SBA for funding, and we would like localized funding. So that last slide, which is in your packet, kind of shows you how support for our programming is distributed in Kansas, and you can see the decline really at the state level and the increase in funding at the federal level. And we believe these Kansas businesses need Kansas support to grow the way that we believe they ought to grow for this state. Thank you very much. And thank you for having us today.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on your success, Tim, and hope that continues. With that, committee questions for any of our presenters today? Yes, Senator O'Shea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for all you do. Congratulations on your business. It's great hearing those stories. I have used the Small Business Development Center here in Topeka with Washburn University a lot, and it's great, and I send people there all the time. And so my question is that if my business that wasn't tech, and I lived in the Fort Hays vicinity and came to your office, would I be sent to a different a different SBDC around the state? Or if I have someone in my area who's tech, would they be sent to yours? Are we looking at kind of specializing the different SBDCs around the state, and how do we meet local needs? Thank you.
It's a great question. So basically, I'll answer the last part first. When a client comes to any of our programs and talks to someone, they get connected with that business advisor. That business advisor is then part of their team. If they need help, yesterday a brand new advisor, I think right here, is on board, and she contacted us about a certain issue. And so I answered a question, and she turned around and continued to work with the client. When that client is ready to get involved, either in the Department of Defense or the Encountering Innovation Conference to do the pitching, DOD, Department of Homeland Security, NASA, FBI has been there, then they come on board. Otherwise, they're still staying with them. When they pitch, their business advisor comes with them. We call them their tech coach because they're part of their team, editing, understanding the information all along. If they come on board any place where they're looking for help and there's not a SBDC in that area, then we, as a region, we cut it up to where all the state, well, it's gone now, but when you see the state with the regional colors, those are the service center area. So there's someone who's responsible for each of those areas. Sure.
Any other questions? And if you would, please, when you answer a question, if you would just restate your name for the record, that would be appreciated. So Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I wanted to, the EMP business, you've been on my radar more than you can imagine. I'm very impressed with what you guys are doing. We've been talking about EMP bombs in my family since 1980. So it is real. I think you would have done great without the small business, but I'm glad that they were there to assist you. You've got a product that is in huge demand. So it's a good team effort. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yes, if you would please come to the microphone, restate your name.
My name is Tim Carty with Emp Shield. I want to clarify a little bit. Going into an EMP market from Kansas, not being a big industrial or defense contractor, being able to get your technology to where they can actually prove the science because of innovations got us to where we could get to the government to where they gave us the thumbs up.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. To clarify, I'm not saying they didn't help you. I know that they helped you. They do a great job. I'm just saying that you have a great product and somebody would have found you eventually. So, yeah, they probably found you quicker.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much. I'm sure that if there are additional questions, any of you would be willing to answer those and help out in any way that you can. We so appreciate you being here today. Okay, committee, I think we do have plenty of time to take up Senate Bill 378, and we'll have a quick review of that from our revisor. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Senate Bill 378 deals with the regulation of fireworks, and the main thing this bill does is it takes away the authorization that is in current law for the fire marshal to set the season for seasonal retailers to sell fireworks. Instead, the bill sets out a season for seasonal retailers from June 15 through July 6, and it also adds a new category of retailer for fireworks, annual retailers. The season for annual retailers is set from January 1st through December 31. The bill provides that a city or county can prohibit or change the season for seasonal retailers. A city or county does not have that ability to change the season with respect to annual retailers, but may prohibit annual retailers from selling fireworks. Annual retailers are required to be licensed under the state fire marshal under the bill, and the license lasts for 2 years. And that's what the bill does.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, what is the will of the committee? Senator Tyson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would try to put it on the consent calendar, but that probably wouldn't fly. So I will make a motion that we move Senate Bill, was it 378 out favorably for passage. I've got a lot of tax bill numbers running through my head right now, so excuse me, Madam Chair.
Understandably so. Is there a second? Second by Senator Peck. Do we have any further discussion on this bill? Senator O'Shea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am in favor of this bill. I did, however, have a constituent reach out today, and for the, since I'm their voice, I want to make sure I share this and just see if anyone else has any concerns. They're concerned that the tent prices will go up because some of the companies come down one day to set up shop for a lot of them. And just a little bit of concern about how in Missouri, since that's happened, there's more chain stores than mom and pop shops. So just wanted to throw that out there, if there's any other thoughts. Thanks.
Refresh my memory, Charles. I thought that these had to be brick and mortar if they're year-round, correct? And only in the seasonal period could the tents be? Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Chairman, I didn't quite hear everything, but if your question regards the annual retailer?
Yes, how it
Yes.
affects the tents, the fireworks tents that are.
Yeah, so there is a requirement that annual retailers have to operate, and that's in page 2, line 37 and 38. They have to operate out of a building that meets state and local fire safety codes.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion? Seeing that, it's been moved and seconded to recommend Senate Bill 378 out favorably for passage. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. With that, that concludes our business for the day. We are adjourned.